Wake the up. Wake the up. You gotta wake up. Mark, you gotta wake up. What's up, all you beautiful people of the internet? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and today we're checking out the new Brand of Sacrifice, Exodus. I'm very glad about this because I was thinking to myself, I was saying, I don't really know what to react to. We've taken a little bit of a break just for me to catch up with, having a newborn, being a new dad. Took a little bit of time off making videos here. You can probably see it in my eyes that I am still exhausted. I'm running on about 4 hours right now, but I'm bringing the content to you. But I'm very excited because this dropped when I was thinking about what we needed to do. And so, we've talked about Brand of Sacrifice on the channel before. I think Kyle Anderson is a great vocalist. Really like a lot of the work that he does. And so I'm certain that we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about here. Now, if you're new to the channel and you haven't skipped ahead, my name is Mark, and I'm a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. We released an album back in June. And I've been doing metal vocals for about 14 years. I can't really exactly remember when I started, but it's around there, 13, 14 years. And I'm also a full-time vocal coach. Not specifically, but I almost entirely teach harsh vocals. I do take a clean singing student here or there, but my main goal is teaching people how to go safely and efficiently for years to come, and, while not over projecting and not working really hard and everything like that. So I really like taking these videos and we take the reaction format video. We take the reaction format. We break it down. We make it educational. I pause a lot. I talk about vocals. I tell you what's going on vocally. If I can't tell, I'll give you my best guess, or I will show you how I would approach it. That's it. If you like the content, like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below. If you really enjoy it. And if you really love the content, check us out on Patreon. We do have a Discord where we've got a lot of people hanging out. We have a really good time. We have karaoke events, we have listening parties. Last Friday, of course, in my time zone, I'm in Arizona, so I'm Pacific time. We just had a time change. I don't know. But my point is, we were on from about 4 p.m. my time till about 2 a.m. It doesn't always go that long, but it often does, and it's a lot of fun. People come in and out. It's a great time. So I think that's enough of that tomfoolery. I'm going to do my best to stay awake during this video because I was doing the dad shift, feeding little Evan from the bottle at 10:30 and then 1 and then 4. So I'm a little tired, but I'm going to do my best to bring some good content your way. So let's go ahead. Let's check out Brand of Sacrifice, Exodus. Kyle Anderson is a beast. Here we go.
You will not survive. This terror's
So we're already going to pause there. 28 seconds. Jeez, that's an early pause. Usually I pause around 40, 50 seconds. But there's already a lot to talk about. So I want to talk a little bit about, I already have like 10 things I want to talk about, but I'll pick like 2 so we can, listen to some of the song here. But one of the hallmarks of deathcore, and interestingly enough, one of the criticisms of deathcore, vocally, is lots of technique, lots of exposition in a small amount of time, in a small space. And I will actually agree that 9 times out of 10, when I hear a deathcore song that I do not like, I feel like the vocalist is like going way too hard. It's like, we get it, dude. We get it. You can shift your resonance around. One of the things I like about Kyle Anderson is I feel like he definitely fits the genre of lots of movement, lots of shifting of vocal technique and vocal placement, but he does it in a way that doesn't feel overbearing. He doesn't do it in a way that feels, pompous. And there are a couple things that he does that I think there are 2 main things that he does that I think really make it so that, yes, he sounds like a deathcore vocalist going all over the place, but he also sounds really tasteful, really listenable, and like a professional. The first thing is he's on time. Okay. I can't tell you how often I'll hear a song, right? And we had a competition a long time ago here on the channel, a vocal contest where the tone of the vocalist is very good. You know, they're hitting all the they're hitting all those things, but they're not just simply like bop, 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 bop. They're not on time because they're more focused on how much can I show off during this song. It's just the truth. You run into that sometimes. Now, that's not always why people are off time. Being on time is a skill, right? So if someone's off time, it doesn't automatically mean that they're trying to be a show off. But sometimes they're more concerned with, hey, here's some music for me to just go bonkers on top of. The second thing is, so my dad brain, I'm spacing on the second thing. The second thing is that he cooperates with the song, right? Sometimes he leads. We haven't heard enough of the song yet to really show this, but as we listen to the song, sometimes he leads, sometimes he follows, right? A lot of the time I feel like deathcore vocalists, what they'll do is they're just constantly leading. They're just nonstop, like bam, 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 trying to force the song to go somewhere. And there are actually times where this is great. Black Dahlia Murder, Trevor Strnad, he was really good at constantly being a driving force and constantly leading while not dominating, overpowering, I should say, the song. Kyle here, and I want you to pay attention to this as we listen. Kyle here, he has a really good way of, you can tell that he's writing I'm just guessing here, but it really seems like he's writing his vocal parts and he's performing his vocal parts in such a way that he's asking himself, like, does the song need me to go ham here? If no, then I'm gonna pull back and I'm gonna let the guitar shine and things like this. I actually do want to listen to this intro again. We'll listen to a little bit more because there was a really interesting high tone in here. He has a very very solid, what I would call like deathcore high vocal, which is that, like, like he's got that down really well, but he did one that sounded more narrative, more spoken, and it was really, really quick. So I just want to try to catch that again, and then we'll listen to a little bit more. We'll keep going.
You will not survive. This terror's
Whew. Okay, it's right there. We are in the 42nd. Okay, yeah, wow, there is a lot going on here. So rather than picking apart each individual vocal that he's doing, I want to talk to you about something a little bit past. Well, this is false chord. This is fry. Those are important things to talk about, but they're kind of just like the beginnings of learning vocals. And I think sometimes the conversation needs to go a little bit farther than that. And I think that Kyle is giving us a really good opportunity to go farther than that. So, I talked a little bit ago about how one of the hallmark sounds, one of the trademark sounds of deathcore, at least on from a vocal perspective, is tons of shifting, tons of resonance movement, tons of openness, right? Open, close, back, forth. It's very acrobatic. It's very expositional. So how do we do that, right? How do we actually do that? That's a really good question. So I personally think that the best way to do this is to, number one, take it slow and learn what your voice feels like in different places, right? The fact of the matter is, the best way to do that, or one of the best ways to do that, is going to be to play with your clean singing voice. Your clean singing voice. Now, listen, you don't have to be an amazing clean singer to be a good metal vocalist, or I should say like harsh metal vocalist, because, metal's a broad term. But if you're going to do stuff like this, just like tons of sludgy, tons of like gritty, goblin-y sounds, oftentimes a trap that I find a lot of new vocalists run into is they're unwilling to work on their clean voice because they're never going to use it. However, we have to understand that so much of our voice is based on the shape of our vocal tract. So much of our voice is based on the air pressure that we use, and 90% of the time people are using way too much. So if we neglect our clean singing voice, we're really cutting ourselves. We're really like, pulling the rug out from under ourselves and losing an opportunity to explore our voice in a really easy way. For example, finding a way to, sing in your chest, right? Sing in your chest voice, that resonance that you can kind of feel if you put your hand here. You don't have to sound great. You do not have to sound great. Ha, right there. Ha. What does it feel like to sing in your head? Ha, 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 ha. What does it feel like to project? Hey, 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 ho, hey, right? What does it feel like to project and then drop down into the chest? Hey, oh, hey, oh, right? None of this is like, Josh Groban level, I'm on the stage singing beautifully, but I'm playing around with registration. I'm playing around with what it feels like for my voice to shift gears. And even if you're not going to sound like let's be real, like my 3-hour hoarse dad voice did not sound super great just then, right? But at the same time, you can still gather a lot of information from that. And by staying relaxed, hey, 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 woo, you can really learn the way that your voice moves. This is very essential for doing things such as this, lifting and moving through those up and down placements, right? The second thing that I think is really valuable to do is to spend some time focusing on just mids or just highs or just lows. I think it's really important to supplement your practice. With like very targeted exercise-based time. So you're sitting down, you've got your metronome, you've got your goal, you're taking notes on your voice, you're recording yourself, and then also to do stuff just screaming along in the car, right? You have to have some fun, or else you'll you have to have some fun, or else you'll lose your motivation, right? We work on positive feedback loops, so just try to get like solid at a mid-tone, right? Hey, 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 kind of old school, but no problem. Hey, hi, hey. Then maybe this might take weeks, right? Months. Then spend some time on a high tone. Neither of those are like, not a lot of bells and whistles going on, right? But if I do these two things separately, yeah, hey, 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 and I've just spent a little bit of time exploring my voice, hoo, hoo, hey, hey, ha, ha, hoo, ha, hey, you'll start to be able to put these movements together. Right? You'll be able to start making those shifts. Now, that's going to take a long time, but it's one of the best ways to go about it. Let's keep going, though, and then maybe we'll talk about some more like fundamental, like here's how to make the sound kind of stuff. Here we go. Well, that's clearly a good time to pause. So there are actually two things I want to talk about. One we're going to go back to listen to, but first and foremost, cool singing. Very masky, very bright, a lot of focus on bright tones. Now, that can be actually really, maybe let's take a pause and tell you what I'm talking about. Now, I'm just going to straight up tell y'all right now. Like I said earlier, I've been getting very little sleep, drinking way too much coffee just to get through my lessons. So my voice is a little hoarse right now. So give me some grace. I'm gonna do some singing examples for you, but cut me some slack. If you want to hear what my clean singing voice sounds like, you can listen to Liminal Right. It's on Spotify or The Almanac or The Bearing of Shadows or other videos here. Today it's gonna be a little raspy. It's gonna have a little bit of that sleepy sound on it. So when we're talking about warm, dark tones and bright, bright, there's not really the opposite of warm that I can think of right now, but like bright and dark tones, right? We can kind of think of it as Well, let me just give you an example, because I'm spacing right now. So if I'm here, right there, it's very warm. Right? It's very warm. It's very relaxed. Now, if I'm more forward, if I put like a stereotypical, now I know not everybody in New York talks like this, all right? It's a stereotype. I get it. But if I put like a sort of stereotypical, like, hey, I'm walking here, hey, la da 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 da, right? Now that sounds like a really bad, like overly twangy, like Broadway voice. But that bright tone, hey, that can be really valuable for when we're wanting to sing like more like rock, more pop, more like punk type of vocals. And you can kind of hear that here, right? So we'll listen to it again. But when he's not singing in like this, sort of what we associate with classical singing, that like really raised soft palate, that that sound right there. He does not sound like a Disney character. He's not like, I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. He's not doing that. He's doing more like, I can't think of a song right now. Jesus Christ. He's doing more like, hey, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. All right, he's doing it. I just decided to riff because I couldn't think of anything. But he's just doing something more like that, right? Now, here's the really cool thing, and here's what I want you to focus on if you're going to be doing that sort of vocalization. Number one, despite how it sounds, it's super relaxed in the throat, right? What we do to brighten our timbre is we think about our tongue position. Like if I say the word heat or hate, right? And you look at my tongue, hey. Looks like I'm doing something weird with my tongue, but that's just the position it sits in for an E. So E, A. Also, so what's happening there is I'm actually creating more space in the back of the mouth, more space in the pharynx, right? Tongue is lifted, tongue is forward. There's a lot of space back here, and that's going to give me some brighter tones. Another thing you can do to show some brighter tones is just show your teeth. Listen to how just showing my teeth changes the tone. It's not going to be mind-blowing, but you're going to hear it. You can hear that sort of change, right? So when we put a lot of these things together, it can really help us. It can really help us get these bright tones. One thing that I like to do, like if I'm going to be in the studio belting or something like that, is I like to make what I call the cat poo noise. It's like if I walk it, I don't have a cat, but it's if I I walk into the bedroom and I see like a plop of cat poo on my pillow, I'd go like this, right? When I'm doing this to like get myself ready, I'm checking the feeling in my larynx. The spot around my vocal folds. I'm asking myself, do I feel like I'm squeezing on my vocal folds to get that sound? Because oftentimes what people will do is they'll squeeze their vocal cords and they'll go, and they think that that's twang. They think that that's ping. It's not. It comes from the shape of the mouth and then a very light tilt of the larynx that you can't really feel anyway, right? So if I make that cat noise, oh yeah, and we start to get some brightness. Also, we're gonna go back a little bit, but they did this like possibly one of the coolest like transition / fills I've heard in a while. It was just like split second black metal. Like this is a black metal song for 2 seconds, right? Jesus Christ, I've already been recording for 20 minutes and we're barely through the song. You know what though? This is an educational channel and I do what I want. So let's go back. I want to find that like little black metal shift. And then I want you to listen to the brightness of his voice when he does this clean singing. By the way, last thing I'll say about brightness is if you're wanting to put grit on your voice, if you're wanting to put distortion and grit on your singing, bright and forward with a relaxed throat is a really good way to make that easy to do because you have so much space for the sound to roll around, for the soft tissues to shake around to create the distortion. Hey, great spot for distortion. Anyways, here we go. Yeah. All right, I let it go a little bit longer so we actually get through some songs. So one thing that I just thought was cool is how we hear that like sort of screechy. I don't know anything about audio production. Like I know what an EQ is, and that's about where it stops, right? But like she does like this scream, and you hear that like really like creaky, scratchy sound, like she was screaming. I don't know. I just thought it was a cool touch. So the director, good job. So here's a really solid question that I kind of think is worth talking about. Oftentimes, right? Oftentimes, we hear vocalists like this, right? Like Kyle, Kyle Anderson, like Will Ramos, like Dave Simonich, like all sorts of these people who are very talented. And one of the most common questions I get is that false chord or fry? Is that false chord or fry? And the funny thing about it is that first and foremost, that's a really valuable question. It's a very valuable question because it tells us the basis of what's going on, and it gives us a direction to start mimicking that sound if we want to mimic that sound. However, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's a kind of difficult conversation to have because I have kind of come to the point where I think of false chord and fry a little less as standalone screams themselves, although they certainly can be that, and almost more so as ingredients when we are talking about the umbrella of, or when we are talking about the portion under the umbrella that is deathcore. There are some genres where you hear just pure false chord and fry screams with not a lot else put on top of them. Melodeath is one. You hear a lot of just plain old false chord, plain old fry, which is, by the way, I love. Some in just to be honest with you, as far as my own listening preferences in the past year, I've really gravitated towards much simpler vocals. Just as I just kind of as a point of taste. I'll come back to the crazy stuff in a bit. It's all cyclical. But if I was to say like, well, if someone was to ask me, well, what, is Kyle Anderson doing false chord or fry here? I would say if I had to pick one, false chord a lot, but also like putting everything he's doing right now to one technique is a bit I think it's a bit limiting, right? So I want to show you some examples, right? And by the way, when I do stuff like this, inevitably I get comments where people are honestly just ignorant, and they're like, stop doing all these vocals and trying to be over the vocalist. You'll never be as good as this vocalist. This is a vocal education channel. And if by now you haven't figured it out, you got something wrong in your head. This isn't the channel for you. I'm sleepy, so I'm extra spicy. But if anybody comments that, if anybody in the comments, here, I want to put y'all to work if I can. If anybody in the comments is like, this guy won't stop listening to the sound of his own voice, just put like a random emoji in there just to confuse him, because clearly they're not listening. Anyway, so when I do this, I'm not trying to be better than Kyle Anderson or anything. I'm showing you how these things move so you can understand them, right? So if I do a basic simple false chord vocal, right, which is more so my specialty. I do teach fry students. They all do very well, but I myself am more of like a false chord dude. Anyway, if I do just like a baseline false chord, right, that doesn't really sound like anything we're hearing here, does it? Not to me, right? So what is happening that allows us to take this false chord sound and apply it to what we're hearing here? Well, there are a couple of concepts that are a little bit tricky to play around with and a little bit tricky to talk about because they mean different things to different people. But the first one would be commonly talked about as compression, right? Now, I don't love the term compression, although like it does describe what's going on fairly well, because it often makes people think that they have to push a lot harder than they need to. This isn't really the case, right? You don't have to push very hard. Every scream that I do and every scream that you do can feel very, very relaxed, like you're chilling on the beach. You know, you're chilling on the beach, you've got your margarita, you've got your feet up, and you're like, and it's one of the most relaxed feelings you've ever had, right? And I'm not exaggerating, it can be very relaxed. So what does that mean then? Well, the first thing I do is I take this false chord, right? Which, if we know about false chord, we know that it is a vocal style where the tissues of the vocal tract are very, very loose. The vocal folds are disengaged. They are going to flop around in the wind a little bit, but they're not going to come together. They're not going to adduct, and they're not going to have any medial tension to create phonation, right? Vocal sounds. And the airflow itself is going to cause everything to rattle around. So really, I'm just kind of breathing out strategically. Problem is, you can't hold that for very long, and unless you want that sound, you're not going to be satisfied with it. So what do we do? Well, we add a little bit of air pressure. Now, what does that mean? It means that we create a little bit of resistance to that airflow at a specific point in the throat so that there is a little bit more air pressure underneath the distortion mechanism. Now, I want to be very clear. Subglottal pressure underneath the vocal folds, is not something you need a lot of. You don't. In fact, when I'm doing something very compressed, like, you know, the amount of increased pressure I feel is very, very negligible because it's all about balance and using as little effort as you can to get as maximal a result as you can. But one of the things that you can do, and one thing I talk about commonly, is taking the top of the throat, the supraglottal tissues, and sort of closing them together. And I feel this as a gentle squeeze of the base of the tongue. So I'm here, wow, this is it, right? I don't need to give it any more than that. And if I simply try to do a false chord growl with my tongue slightly squeezed, which is helping the tissues above the vocal folds come together, do you hear how it has that slightly more gurgly sound? What's going on is, in addition to my false chords flapping around, my other cartilages, arytenoid cartilages, which technically we'd want to call them cuneiform cartilages because those are protrusions, but it doesn't matter. Those soft tissues are coming together slightly. Right? And so it still falls under that false chord umbrella, right? But there's more going on. There are more advanced things happening, right? That's one way. This is not the only way. This is one common way, and it's the way that I do, right? However, we can add some fry distortion underneath that, right? So this is another example of when we say, well, is it false chord or fry? It can kind of be like, the binary of that question presupposes that the answer is on that spectrum, right? But if I take this and it's like more false chord influenced, right? You know, it's got that open floppy sound. If I add a little bit of fry texture underneath, right? You can hear that more TV static sound, right? So, it's a very long-winded way of saying that if you want to learn to make sounds like this, the value of talking about false chord and fry is giving yourself a good baseline to start with, and then understand that you're going to build and put things on top of that. I talked a lot just now, but I can't help it. Kyle Anderson's a good vocalist. He makes my brain roll around. But I just realized I have a lesson in 10 minutes. So I got to keep going. Here we go. Woo! All right. So a lot we could talk about there. So here's a cool thing. So a lot of what we have here is shift in mouth shape. And one word that we can use for mouth shape is embouchure, right? Oftentimes, I think when vocalists want to change, new vocalists especially want to change their scream, their first thought is to change the distortion. I would say, this is a little bit of a hot take, but I would say that if there's a handful of things that hold new vocalists back, one of those things is that they pay too much attention to the distortion rather than the other parts of their voice, right? One of the reasons I sound like I do when I talk is because of the shape of my resonators, right? The shape of my mouth, the amount of space I have in my throat, like the vestibule, that space above the vocal folds, that is going to be a slightly more open, more closed than other people. My sinuses have a big play in how my voice sounds. So that being said, I can't obviously control the shape of my sinuses, as far as I know, but I can control the shape of my mouth. So if I have this scream down here, and I want it to sound like a more open roaring mid, where a lot of new vocalists would go where they feel like they're not making any progress is they would think they have to do a different type of distortion, when in all reality, they just need to open up their mouth more. That's really it, right? That's like a low guttural type of sound. Now I'm just going to open up more, and I'm going to just change the way I'm delivering the sound. So instead of going like roar, 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 what I'm going to do is I'm going to go yeah, right? No, right? And you have a midtone, right? Now you can do that with any vocal fry, false word, doesn't matter. Conceptually, it's the same. The shape of the mouth is the thing that I changed. I didn't pay any attention to the distortion. Now, you can hear him doing that. There were three main like chest voice screams that I could pick from that. One was that like those two that I just did, that low like row row row, and then that mid rah rah rah, right? And then another one is a very tight mouth, and that's a really fun sound to do. Although it does require a little bit of playing around with airflow, a little bit of understanding of airflow, because you are moving air through a second point of occlusion. But one thing you can do is like a really cool way to make a really gross guttural is to just kind of make a throw up face, like that face you make, right? And if I guttural through there, it sounds pretty cool. It's a cool way to make a really cool tone. Now, of course, we had like the animalistic, monstrous, type of high tone going on there. Kudos to Kyle for only doing it once. I'll leave it there. Kudos to Kyle for only doing it once. But one of the main ways you can get this, and this is a cool way to get that sound with a false chord or a fry, is to just let the back of your tongue touch your soft palate. That's it, right? So if I go like this a little bit, right, I'm doing a tunnel. I'm letting the back of my tongue touch my soft palate. Cool stuff, right? And then that's not the scream. That's something I'm putting on top of the scream. That's a little bit of icing on the cake. So if I do like this on its own is going to sound, it's going to sound like a cool high vocal, right? Great. Now let's do it while I'm going to do that same scream, but it's going to move through this. And it sounds like I'm doing something super crazy, but I'm just doing a really easy high vocal with this. And you can put that on your fry as well. I will say that the really like ripping, tearing fry sound or of those like, monstery beast like wet high vocals that you hear do tend to be pretty much fry vocals, or at least very heavily fry influenced. But either way, you can get that gurgly sound going. So cool stuff all around. And I'm glad it was done tastefully here, because like that sound has gotten popular since the Hellfire. And I have heard some smaller groups do whole songs where it's just like 4 minutes of that, and I can't get through it. I can't get through it because I'm just like, oh my God, it's one sound. But I will say that when it's done tastefully, like once or twice here, when the music's really asking for it, it can be a very cool effect. It can be a very cool effect. Here we go. Hell yeah. That was pretty cool. That was pretty sick. There was a lot. I don't know. I wish I had more time before my lesson, because I feel like I could listen to that song again and find more. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by all the YouTube suggestions. Oh, God of War Ragnarok, of course. Oh, and then this guy, what a piece of human garbage. Anyway, you don't want to read about this guy. Anyway, great song. Brandof Sacrifice does a really good job. I think Kyle does really well. I hope through that song you could kind of appreciate some of the things that I was pointing out. If it's not for you, that's totally fine, but I think Brandof Sacrifice does a great job. I got 3 minutes until my lesson, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it short. Thank you all so much for your time and for hanging out with us on this whatever day this video goes up. If you really like the content, like, share, subscribe. Check us out on Patreon. I do give vocal lessons, cardivoxacademy.com. You can reach out, learn about what I do. And if you want to know, like, okay, well, this guy just spent almost 40 minutes telling me how vocals work. What are his credentials? What are his chops? Check out Kardashev on Spotify. Liminal Right, and The Bearing of Shadows and the Almanac, I think, are kind of our more quintessential sound. And that's all I got for you. So with that being said, I'm going to give this lesson. And then I'm going to catch up on some student emails, and then I might try to catch up on some sleep. Probably not. As always, many thanks. Much love.